Game and compute, what is up? Today's Saturday, President's Day weekend, Saturday, February 17th, 2024. Hope everybody's doing well. I want to talk kind of for fun about coping with this digital world. I was watching, Rich and Nish's Rich UX, his latest long form video. I missed the live because I kind of just lost track of time and missed the live. It was at Friday at 11 a.m. I missed it, and then I was like, oh, like I remembered I wanted to watch that, so I watched it. He made this comment kind of about digital everything. Yeah, I kind of got to thinking. I was like, all right, that's an interesting take because we're kind of going in that direction. We are. Um, we hear things about singularity and cyborgs and the matrix and glitches and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, you know, I mean, I first maybe started hearing about uh kind of like comparing humans and the human brain to like computers with like talking about memory and processing and things like that, like, because I studied psychology. My major was psychology. I worked in psychology for like 9ish years if you count the practicums where I wasn't really paid and it was just like a small, like $100 or $200 a month stipend or so. um so I'm familiar with the brain. I'm familiar with human behavioral patterns. I'm familiar with trauma. I'm familiar with mental health conditions and kind of like where they can come from as far as like, the biopsychosocial model and all these types of things. And I'm also, you know, into the techie stuff. That's always been kind of more on the hobby end. It was like, okay, like I'll blog over here for fun when I'm not working. A lot of times it was, maybe psychological based topics or topics about, somewhere between like spirituality and psychology and social, uh, just social interaction, social life type of conversations. Uh, that kind of stuff has always fascinated me. And then other stuff that has fascinated me has been usually more in the tech world. Um, the learning aspect of things, the practice aspect of things, the just kind of how everything changes and you're always able to learn something new. I don't really like how fast things become obsolete, but this week I was kind of checking in with someone and was like, we kind of started talking about technology and, what it's like being online and stuff. And, you know, a lot of the work I do is online these days. I'm not like, even when I was working in psychology, we spent a lot of time with the software and it was online and we'd be typing and stuff in the system, just these excessively long reports for the insurance and stuff. Um, like excessively long. Like it was bad. It was bad. Like it got in the way. It interfered with actually being able to provide treatment and like the reports for everything you did were so long that it was like, okay, it's really getting in the way of being able to like serve the community at a certain point because you're like, well, I gotta write everything I do, I gotta write it down. But with this template that you'd have to follow that was so just like excessive, like even a simple phone call could be like a one full page report just because they called, and you have to like list all the history of like, well, last time, they weren't at risk, and this person's this age and this gender and this sexuality and just this ethnicity and this, gender identity and this, kind of like historical diagnostic background and kind of like what their presenting problem is and why was the reason for the call. It's like, dude, they just wanted to schedule with the doctor. And now I got to write this whole thing, you know, no pull down menus, nothing. Like you'd have to almost write every note as if somebody was never going to read anything else in the chart. So you'd have to kind of write a lot of background about like risk factors with substances and trauma history and like excessive because all the information was always in there. Like, yes, there were changes, but all the information was already in there. But it was more of a like, let's cover ourselves kind of thing, so that people can't look at a note and be like, oh well, if you didn't mention it and somebody was in some kind of urgent situation and they only read that last note, which that's on them, but it's like if they only read that last note, they would at least have more details. But it's like, well, that's why we do assessments and make client plans, and they see the doctor and they see the nurse and they go to groups and they go to all these other programs at other places, and we have documentation about that too. It's like, why do we have to put it all in every single note? But it was literally like to that point of excessiveness. It was like, are we really even helping people at a certain point? Like, okay, gotta cancel this appointment or cancel this group because I got all these notes I need to go back and write because I got an extra 6 phone calls today or something, and now I have to have time to write those, so I'll finish them today. And then it was just a mess, So that kind of stuff I don't miss. But, otherwise that job was mostly face to face. And, you know, now most of my work is not face to face. There is consulting online and kind of like meetings and things like that, but it's not really face to face, too much. And I see it as, part of me likes it more. I do miss the days of being in the office in person and like joking around with people, but just that inconvenience of the drive to and from. Like I'm a penny pincher. I'm a penny pincher type of person. And you know, when I realized it was like, okay, 20 miles round trip, say gas is $4 or $5 a gallon. Say my car gets, or maybe it's 40 miles, about 40 miles round trip. And when I realized I was spending like $8 to $10 a day just on gas, that's like $80 to $100 a week just on gas. That's almost $400, $320 to $400 a month on gas just to get to and from work. It's like working at home, you don't have to pay for that. Working from a coffee shop or library right near you, you don't have to pay for that. Like, is there any experience that I'm getting at work that's worth that money to me? Because usually when I have friends at work, I can hang out with them outside of work too. And usually when you're hanging out at work, you're not really hanging out because you're working. So it's one of those things. Um, I have friends outside of work in person who are human beings. So it's kind of one of those things that I think, depending on the person, if you're working in a remote setting where everyone's in different states, I think the Zoom meetings really aren't going to cut it, or just phone calls. And like maybe once or twice a year, you'll meet up in some city and have some team building things. Like most people socially need more than that. Um, but I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Are we becoming cyborgs? I looked it up. I looked up singularity and cyborg. According to Wikipedia, technological singularity is, or just called the singularity, a hypothetical future point in time at which Technological growth becomes uncontrollable and irreversible, resulting in unforeseeable consequences for human civilization. I'm not going to read that whole entire thing. Let's just keep that in mind. And then a cyborg. Um, we see that a lot with like superheroes on like I don't know, like superheroes, um, Marvel. No, there's a lot of them. I'm not gonna name them all, but you see that more in like the sci-fi world. But cyborg, term blending the words cybernetic and organism, originally proposed in 1960 to describe a human being whose physiological functions are aided or enhanced by artificial means, such as biochemical or electronic modifications to the body. Now I've been watching Halo. I'm on episode 7 of season I'm starting episode 7 of today of season 1. Um Me and my mom are watching it, and you know, you've seen other things like what was it, Iron Man, how they have like suits and things. Like maybe you could even say like in certain shows, certain movies or shows like Star Trek, Star Wars movies, maybe people have some kind of like enhanced device or something that enhances them. And now we've got AI, right? And we have it from angles just as simple as, you know, what's built into your phone, you know. Um, you have Siri, you have Google. I don't know what the Google one is called where you say, "Hey Google." I mean, these are like older. These are older. That's not even like the newer stuff that's coming out through OpenAI. Um, the replica app that I've talked about. Um, all sorts of things. Like it's so already ingrained in society. But I guess let's look at this maybe question of, could we go back? Could we go backward? And is it irreversible? Um, it would take a lot of challenging lifestyle changes to go back. For example, if you've ever been at work at a job where you need your computer, like I mentioned, when I was working in mental health, we needed the computer to document in the system. But if the internet went down, for example, just for like, I think the most it ever went down was like maybe 4 or 5 hours on one day or something. We lost the electricity too. I think it was like the lights went out for maybe like 30 minutes, and then we didn't have Wi Fi for like 4 hours or 5 hours. It was like half of a day, pretty much, one day. And then almost every day on Fridays for like this was like maybe a 6 month period or something. The internet used to be like hit or miss for about an hour and a half at the end of almost every day. Like you would write in all your notes, like I said, all that excessive information, and you go to try to save it, and it wouldn't save. And then you'd be like, great, now I got to rewrite like 5 pages worth of information that I just wrote. It would set people back. They'd have to do overtime and take work home just to finish what didn't save, and it became an even bigger mess and a problem because it was already a problem, but now it was like a bigger problem, and it was temporary. It didn't last like years. But take something like that, where just the internet goes down, not even for one full day, not even like don't come into work tomorrow because we don't have internet and you can't do your job. Simple things. You couldn't look up people in the system so people would walk through the door if admin didn't notice who they were. You couldn't look them up and see, do you even qualify to like get services here? We can't look you up. We don't have inability to like look you up in the system because you have to be online to look anybody up. Are you eligible? Can we run your insurance? We can't even do that without the internet. Um, we couldn't technically see people or actively call them, like unless they walked in to be seen and we knew them and everything already and they were already enrolled and we already had scheduled appointments, then we kind of get to see them that way. But if it wasn't like that, it's like, well, I couldn't like actively go out of my way to like call someone if somebody no showed, call a new client or a different client and fill in that hour with like maybe 2 phone calls and check in on people who maybe missed appointments last week and get them rescheduled and make sure they're doing all right. Because now it's like, how do I get the number? The number's in the system. We didn't save numbers. These were like landlines. We didn't like save them. The calendars were connected to the computer. All the contact information was in the computer. It's all online. So we couldn't call anybody. We didn't have access to their information. Say if I had it written down on some page somewhere, I wasn't supposed to call them because it's like, well, I can't pull you up in the system and concurrently write the note. Like, simple, simple. And we weren't set up to be like, oh, let's all do paper. Like, we could do paper notes for maybe like those half days or whatever, just so that we have like some kind of record. So it's like if somebody goes missing, not goes missing, but if somebody is like a staff is sick the next day and they couldn't write their details in the system for the client they had just seen and they were out ill, at least there was something written somewhere in the building. It's like, was it in their desk? Was it in their mailbox? Was it, you know, put into the paper chart? Because we did have paper charts. I forgot about that. We did have paper charts. So we could have looked it up. But it would be like extra work to have to write it down on a form and then have to put it into the system. It's just, I forgot about the paper chart. Sorry about that. So we could have technically done work. We just would have had to write everything in paper charts and have some kind of paper system where everybody had access to look up who talked to who, um, and when, and how long. And I don't know how we wouldn't have gotten this information over to the insurance. Like, we couldn't have lasted long like that with the amount of work we needed to do and the speed at which we needed to do it and all the non-scheduled things that happened, which made it a bigger issue because we'd always have people coming in um unscheduled or people who wanted to get into the programs who weren't on file or we didn't know who they were, or people calling in needing something. They weren't scheduled calls. Some of the calls were scheduled, some of them, most of them probably weren't. And then other people we'd have to check on if they missed their doctor's appointment. Somebody would have to call the person and check in and make sure that they're okay because it's a risk if we know that they don't have access to the medication refills. It was, so thinking about that job situation, I don't think, unless somebody would have had to go deeply out of their way to like set up a paper-based system that would work longer term. Would it be possible to reverse? Yes. Would it be comfortable or efficient? No. And it would probably change the amount of people we could even see because now we're writing everything by hand and having to hand file things, and like it would have slowed down work a lot. Now think about it on a bigger level. Expand outside of this job. You're driving through the city in San Diego. The stoplights are attached to, some automated system, just traffic lights. So now you have these human beings directing traffic. Say you want to go to the store. Not everybody pays cash. A lot of the registers, let's say we still have electricity, but just no internet. Um, Even if it went down for like a day, I mean, that would just be a mess. Like, you can't use your card. You can't get money out of your ATM. You could go physically into the bank if it's open. I think. I think you should be able to withdraw cash. I don't know if they have. I don't think they have ledgers like that. Like, I think you'd. I don't know if you'd be able to get cash out. I don't know what kind of system the bank uses. if you happen to have, I don't know how you would get money. You'd have to have cash on you, and the stores would have to be able to take cash. Like they need to be able to use the registers, and you'd be able to pay for stuff and maybe get like a paper receipt where they would write it out. I don't really know. But even for a day, it's like businesses would have trouble even opening their doors, staying open. A lot of places probably wouldn't stay open. They'd be like, "Sorry, we can't do this. We can't." Like I went in the Target once or twice. I used to use a specific ATM for a certain debit card that ATM wouldn't charge me some like $3 fee or something. And I go into Target and twice, once that machine was completely out of order. This and during that day, Target didn't have lights. For some reason the lights had gone out in the Target. I don't understand why. I can't remember if the registers weren't working. I think they were. I don't I don't know, there were some things you couldn't use. I can't remember exactly what it was. Like I don't think they had no power. I just think there was something limited with the power, with the electricity. Cuz I think people were still buying stuff. But some things weren't working. I don't know if it affected the freezers, the food. I think I don't remember. I just went there to use the ATM. And I remember going there another day because I was like, okay, that was the closest ATM like that to me that wouldn't charge me, and I would drive by that Target all the time. So I was like, well, why not just save a couple bucks, like go to the Target, like. But I never went there after this because it was like the second time I went, probably the next week or let's call it like 4 or 5 days later, and I just didn't want to lose money with trying to withdraw cash, and I was like, okay, like go to withdraw and like the ATM was down again for some other reason. I was just like, what the heck? And that's just one. I mean, I could have gone to any other ATM, got the fee, you know. But say if you're trying to do something specific like that and it's just like it's not working. There's a couple gas stations in my neighborhood that I've gone they're the cheaper gas stations like Arco and this other one, I don't even know what the name of it is, but they're like the cheapest ones compared to all the other gas stations. There's like two Arcos and one this other name. I don't know any other gas stations with that name. I don't know what it is, but it's cheap. And of these three gas stations, multiple times the cheap one with the name that I don't know, multiple times it's been closed. Like you couldn't go inside and pay. I don't know if you could pay outside, but you couldn't go inside and pay. And multiple times, probably like at least 4 or 5 times now, that other Arco it's like a distance away from me. Um, Kind of near the city of Lomita. It's like near there. Um, it basically, like you couldn't go in. Like like you could buy stuff. You could buy candy bars or whatever, but the gas just something was wrong. People were paying for their gas with their cards and saying that the gas wasn't coming out, and then they weren't running cards or taking cash inside. But you could buy other stuff. You could buy like candy bars, sodas, whatever. Like the little shop inside was open. But things like that. I mean, you think about it and you're like, okay, there's a gas station. Like most in LA, a lot of times, a lot of places are like this. It's not just one gas station. There's always one like a block away or right across the street. So almost all these gas stations that were cheaper had like a mobile station or like a Chevron or like something like that. It's like an extra dollar a gallon more than what I'm trying to pay, or like an extra like 80 cents or 75 cents more in cost per gallon. Um, but it's right across the street. So it's like if you're not trying to save some dollars, save some money, you could technically just go and get gas still. Like the other ones were working. But for some reason these cheaper ones weren't, and I don't know if that was a temporary thing. It was happening a lot during January. I remember that. January, December. Well, January I noticed it more. Um, I don't remember February at all. Maybe February, the beginning of February. I can't. I think yeah. I think the beginning of February too. I don't know how it is now. Because I just kind of stopped going to them because I'm like every time I go, they're out of order or something's weird. Um, but there is the option to get gas like across from there. So I just noticed I'm like, okay, these are simple examples of when technology isn't working, when there's still another option, right? If an ATM somewhere isn't working, I can go somewhere else. If a gas station isn't working, I can go somewhere else. You know, those were like minor because it's like I did have other options. It's just a money saving thing. It's like, well, I don't want to spend an extra $3 here, an extra $15 there, when I can save it and spend less for the same, technically almost the same thing. Um, like, but if we take that example of like, what if the internet was down for like a day? Could you get cash? Because that's the only way you could probably buy something. You're, you know, could you use money from your Apple Pay, from your phone? Could you use your phone? How would it even work? Like, I feel like all this is like Wi-Fi internet based. Like, you can't scan. Like, could you use Bitcoin? Could you use crypto? I mean, it's digital. You kind of have to have internet to like log in. Even if it is in a different bank account, like I have this other bank account called Juno. It was called On Juno, and now it's Juno. And you can basically convert your crypto directly into that account without like all those fees. Like you can basically store crypto in there and just convert it right away. But you have to have internet to do that. You can't just do it with no internet. So it's like I do have a technically a bank where I could store it, but it's not a physical bank. I can't go to the bank in person, and take out cash using like a bank card in my ID or something. It would be a mess. It would be a mess. Like people wouldn't have what they needed just cash wise. Could we even go to like a cash society just automatically without warning, you know? It wasn't that long ago when, fast food joints, restaurants, stores didn't have paper money and coins. They couldn't give you exact change, you know, because they didn't have the actual physical money to do it. They didn't have enough to go around. And they were requesting of people, hey, give us, if you have extra dollars and coins, can you donate them or whatever? Like, I don't even know if that still happens, but I think it does. And it's like, how weird is that? Like, when did this become a thing? And I don't even know any of the politics involved. I'm just thinking, I'm just like, what in the heck is going on? Um, but we're very reliant on, like I've, I work from home a lot. And so I am affected on days when it's like, oh, the power is going to shut off from like whatever. Like they'll give you warning in the cities, like, oh, we're going to be working, doing some kind of like construction or updates. And it's quite a few times a year. Let's call it like 4 or 5 times a year they do this where they shut down the power. And that means we don't have internet. And that means I got to pack up and go to a coffee shop or whatever. But that's not my whole city. It's like my whole little area. It'll just like they'll tell us next Wednesday or like in 3 weeks or so we're gonna be working from like 3 p.m. to like 7 p.m. So on the electric. So prepare. And the things that you don't even think about that you're gonna need, just because you don't have electricity for a few hours. It's like, okay, I can't charge my phone. Okay, like literally I just have to leave the house. Like that's the easiest option. It's just go down the street to the coffee shop, down the street by the beach or whatever. Chill there for a while till it comes back. Um but yeah, those are just I guess examples. of immediate things where I'm like, it's never been a big deal. Because usually I either have notice or it's been temporary. I don't think I've had a whole day. Like maybe I've been in places. Like I think I remember going to like a pride event and my phone didn't work in the actual event and I kept trying to like renew my parking by phone and there was no re-entry. So if I left, I couldn't come back in. So I remember me and my friend had to leave early because I was like, well, I don't want to get a ticket or get my car towed because I'm parked like past the minutes and I can't renew my minutes by phone and I can't leave to go do it in person. And my phone wasn't working anywhere in there. I tried her phone, it wasn't working anywhere nearby where I could try to get reception. Um, so I had to miss some of the performances and everything, unfortunately. But like, dang, it's like, it happens sometimes, like in concerts and stuff. Say you get disconnected from your friends, and then you can't like text because nobody's phones work. And it's like their phones do work. It happens in movie theaters sometimes too. You're trying to text somebody like, "Hey, I'm already inside the theater," but your phone won't work. You know, little things. These are like little bitty things. They're not even things that are like a big deal because there's a solution to all of them. You can go outside, you could leave, you could go, there's a solution. Um, but could we reverse? I don't think we could reverse at this point. Maybe with warning. I think with warning we could reverse and go back to paper-based systems and things. But work, jobs, payroll, efficiency, communication, it would all be affected. So I don't know. I think we've kind of reached that point of technological singularity. We're in the singularity. I do think I might agree with that. We could go back, but it would be a challenge. And I could we go back and actually like thrive, because we're already in a struggle right now. But could we go back to like paper-based systems? Okay, okay. So maybe cultures who do this. I only know of one culture, the Amish culture, that has maybe a hybrid version of this where they have like paper bookkeeping and like um you know like say if they have like catalogs of their inventory and stuff and they have a paper system. I've studied a little bit about the Amish culture as far as like their business models and stuff. I really like it because a lot of it's very like, okay, they grow stuff or they build stuff or they make stuff and they still sell it, but it's like, well, if they don't, like, some people might use computers, it varies. It varies from group to group. There's so many different groups and so many different rules that they go by, and some groups use hand tools only. Some groups use tools that are power tools. Some groups use wireless power tools. Some groups, they have like some manual heating system inside their, like some kerosene thing. I don't even know what they're called, but some kind of heating system inside their little store and some kind of like maybe solar power for like lighting. They get around like the rules of their, to be able to, like, I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. I'm not making a moral judgment on them. I'm just saying like they can still follow their religion's rules in that group that they're a part of, their specific rules, and not break the rules, but still run a business, is what I'm trying to say. Still be profitable. And they could resell stuff. They have like those dent, like discounted, like dented goods kind of stores, like cans, boxes that are like, they're still good, they're still good quality, the food's not damaged, everything's fine. It might even be name brand foods and stuff or homemade goods and stuff and everything's discounted or like homemade stuff. Um necessities like boots and socks and you know stuff that people need, beanies, gloves, like important stuff like work gear. dishes, pots, pans, stuff that people need, that they're gonna need around their house that they're not gonna make. Like, I mean, the Amish make their clothing for the most part, but they don't make shoes. Like, they might have cobblers, but I don't know if they do. They might. Some might. But I think they can still buy shoes from like Walmart and like work gloves. They don't like knit like the work gloves and stuff. And like they have these hats that I think the hats are usually homemade, but they can like make them and sell them to the people in the community based on like what width of the brim is like proper for their community, because there's all these different rules about the lengths and colors and materials. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, because a lot of them didn't go back. They didn't go back in time to learn a business model. Um, to learn how to like do it that way. They just kind of stayed that way. And they still have like advanced a little bit technologically, somewhat, just not as fast as like mainstream America. So it is possible. If they can do it, you could kind of model after the systems that they have. But how would that be for certain things from China? How do you how do you resell? How do you how do you buy at how do you hire cheaper labor to make cheaper goods, to buy those goods and resell them at a profitable price after all the shipping and payments and all that? How do you do that without a computer system? That would really be, I think that part, would really have to change in the US. People would maybe have to go back to making their own stuff. That would probably affect prices because now, and you know, availability, because now you have to wait for people to make everything. Um, things would be back ordered. We saw that with RVs during the Rona. I don't know how accurate this is, but I follow this guy Amish Potato. He mentioned that um what was his name? He mentioned that in Indiana, I guess that's the capital of where like RVs are kind of like made, at least in the US, I guess. I don't really know. But there was like a backup, a back order, because people were buying them at such high rates. Um, maybe to live out of and like go on camping trips and stuff, because they were like stuck indoors, and the housing market was changing, and like people were having more and more need for RVs, and most of the people making them, they're putting them together by hand, and with tools and stuff, and it mostly comes out of Amish country, out of Amish factories. I Now this is what he said, and I've never confirmed that, but it sounds like it could be true. Like there are a lot of RV factories in Indiana, and I don't know of any. I don't know of like a lot of them or any of them. Um, I mean, I I think I've seen businesses where they sell RVs. I think I have, not a lot, like not a lot in LA. I don't think I've seen. There's tons and tons of car dealerships out here. I don't know if I've ever seen like RV lots, like where people aren't living in them. I've seen people living there, but I don't. I mean, I don't know, but that wasn't even that long ago. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to like incite fear in people. Like, I just kind of want to open a conversation about like how is technology affecting us? I think it's good to always have backup. Always have backup cash. Because if things go down for even like a day or two, you don't want to be in a situation where you can't buy anything. Always have something that's worth money, that you can sell to other people. Being able to grow things, a very important skill. Being able to make certain things, important skill. Um, I don't think we can tell for sure in the future if we're gonna need it. Um, because even going without internet for like a day unplanned, I think there might be a lot of chaos. Um, I mean, I've even seen in certain places where people don't have electricity for a while and it's cold and snowing and they need heat, or people get snowed in, or when it floods places. These are just natural like reasons based on nature that a lot of people are aware of in those environments, and they kind of have a method of planning around it, having emergency supplies and stuff is just smart. Like last winter in California, we saw a lot of issues with the snow that we don't know what, we're not prepared. We're not prepared to like not be able to leave the mountains for days at a time and like shovel out your car and not be able to go on trips in the mountains because roads are closed, and if you can't live here, you can't come up here kind of thing because of the danger of it. And we're not used to that. And so I'm noticing little by little there have become little issues. They're like little ones that are temporary, but I think it's gotten to a point where it's enough to be like, okay, it's time to start planning, like at least have something in the works so that you could, start with like a couple days, 2, 3 days, you'll be okay. A week, you'll be okay. 2 weeks, you'll be okay. Like, what do they tell you? Like, have 3 months of rent aside, in case you have some urgent situation where you need to like make a major change or like your job lets you go. I mean, most people don't do that. Most people don't even have 1 month set aside. We're not used to preparing, you know. But, I've seen enough little things here and there that are like, when I talk with my friends, and it's not like a paranoid thing, and we're kind of joking about like conspiracies and like, yeah, it's kind of lighthearted. But, you know, I think it's good to have a little bit of backup, at least a little bit to feel secure, a little bit of money, at least, a little bit extra gasoline, a little bit extra food, water. Think about the basic stuff you need. A little bit of juice for your like electronics, like some kind of backup battery, some kind of generator. Um we've got like a little backup generator, but I don't think it lasts like that long. Um just a little bit, like a little bit goes a long way. Even if you can't do the 3 months or the Dave Ramsey save $1,000 for some kind of urgent fund, or like something like that. If even if you can't do the full thing, do something. Have a little bit of something. You know, I'm not like a doomsday person, but it's just I've seen more and more that like, and I live in LA. I'm not like living like in the middle of nowhere, and I feel like it's almost getting more and more predictable for people who live in the middle of nowhere, and less predictable for us city dwellers. You know, maybe that's what it is. Because in the city, you rely on things working. You know, I I rely on stores being open. Because we can't sustain ourselves. Like we grow veggies and stuff, but I don't know how long it would realistically last us if we couldn't go shopping. We don't have people who hunt or fish. Like maybe you could fish off the pier. I don't know. Those fish are probably polluted. You could probably hunt birds, seagulls, pelicans. I don't know. That sounds disgusting. Raccoons, possums. We could eat that kind of stuff. Probably get sick eating it. They eat city trash. Um, we don't even really live in an environment where you could really sustain yourself. Like seriously, we still need at least a little bit of something. Like we don't have enough people hunting and fishing around us where we could even buy meat off of local people. Um, we could probably get by for like a couple months, maybe more, if we started growing things that would grow very, very swiftly. And we do have extra. And if we could barter and exchange, and if we did have cash and everything wasn't marked up completely, we could probably make it work. And we'd have to have better security. It would just be a mess. I could see how it would be a mess. But the reason why I'm talking in extremes is because I feel like the way to cope is to have a little bit, to feel secure a little bit, just even a little bit. Know that you can find a way to sustain yourself. Think it through, plan it out, and go from there. Um, I mean that's one good method. That's one good method I would say. Um, because if anything happens that changes more than just temporarily or more than something that's announced and planned for, you know, we can't reverse very quickly. You know, even if it's just sustaining yourself and your family, it's like, how are you even going to work? Would work even become obsolete? Your work could change in an instance, depending what you're doing. If you're mall security, I mean, what's your job? If there's no more mall, if people loot the mall and steal everything, or they shut down the mall because there's no electricity or no internet, and people eventually run out of cash and can't buy anything, and then they can't pay the staff and they stop coming in. I mean, what are you securing? And who's paying you? You know? And if you're not getting a paycheck, you're not getting money. We use money. I don't know. Um, it's. I feel like we do often spend a lot of time thinking about AI in the future and you know the forward direction of technology, but I think it's it's good to not lose sight of you know um the reverse, in the old school methods, because you might need them even if it's for like a day or so. It's very likely, you know, you don't want to be in a position where you lose money just because of your city has an issue for a week, or your neighborhood or something. I think we've all had it where it's like either the plumbing is out for like a day or half a day or 2 days, or the electricity is kind of like getting repaired in your city, in your area. We've all had at least those. And we know how inconvenient that is. And we know it's just my block. It's just my area. And so that's controlled, right? It's like there's people working on it. So, I think it's wise to be prepared for a little bit more. Something unplanned, something unannounced. I'm not saying like things are going to go back to like before we had any kind of technology and stuff, but any kind of like modern technology, because I guess there's always some kind of technology, right? Like at one point, like a catapult was technology. Bows and arrows, I mean, as ancient as they are some pretty interesting technology. Ancient technology is still, there's a lot of it that we don't even understand, like the pyramids. How long have they been there? People can't figure that out. Stonehenge, there's all these different sites that, have some form of technological knowledge or advanced knowledge that we don't really currently know. And so, I'm a big believer that moving forward isn't always the only answer. I talk about this with friends. Um, not only is moving forward not always the best, like think about cars. We're moving forward with cars. You know, it's one thing to run out of gas. It's one thing to blow a tire, but having a computer glitch, somebody told me about a car. I don't know which one it is, but a car of someone that they know that if they don't update it, they can't drive it. It's like, how long I wait to update Windows? You know, you know how much I hate updating my phone? Like I'm not the kind of person to need to have a car that needs to be updated. I would probably miss work if I had to go work, drive there. I'd be like, oh shoot, I forgot to update my car over the weekend, and now I can't drive. you know, it's like it won't let you drive it. Like what the heck? I didn't even know that was a thing. But I don't know. I mean, I think the best way to cope with things is just kind of think it forward, think it backward. You know, not always just think forward, think forward. Think about, oh, I want the newest technology, the newest advancements. Think about the cost that that has to you. Electric cars, they're great for the environment, kind of, kind of. Everything's kind of great because computers is questionable if computer technology is great for the environment because you have to get all of those resources for the components from somewhere. There is a lot of, I want to look into this because I don't know the details, but there are a lot of places in the world where they're saying, hey, you guys are overextending our resources and displacing people because you need all these resources for technology. The Congo, different places in the world where they're not, oil rigs are being put up in it and it's destroying fishing villages. It destroys their whole ancient economy and they can't even do anything but try to figure out a new method, you know? And so it could happen to any of us. Your way of life gets taken away by some new technology. You know, just because it's new doesn't mean it's always good. And I'm playing with ideas here. This isn't even like a very educational thing. It's not supposed to be doom and gloom, but for people who like to think about this kind of stuff, I like to think about it. Some people hate it. They're just like, I don't even want to think about it. I just want to go on about my day, and that's fine. You know, um, but me and my friend groups, we love talking about these types of topics. We love it. It's fun for us, and we kind of play through scenarios. And like just the other day, I had the weirdest experience while I was on the phone with a friend, and this dude walks up my driveway. Like it wasn't even night yet. It was like almost 5 p.m. ish. So it was still light out. It was still daylight out. And I'm sitting in the car talking on the phone, and this guy walks. I'm looking at him in the mirror. He walks straight up the driveway on the side of not even up the middle of the driveway, up the side of the driveway. My driver's side of the car was close to the neighbor's fence. So there was like max like 2 foot of distance between the fence and the driver's side of my car. And I'm parked, sitting there, just chatting on the phone, getting some fresh air, sitting outside in the car. And this dude just comes. There's people walking around in the neighborhood. This guy comes, turns up the driveway, and just walks like almost as if he knows where he's going. And I'm watching people, like I'm already looking in the mirror, just watching people kind of walking by, taking their evening walks. It's not night yet. I can see the people. I saw him, and he walked straight up the driveway, maybe to like the back of the car. It's an SUV, and I saw him, and I'm sitting in there with the door closed, talking on the phone to my friend, like what's going on? And I'm looking in the mirror at this guy. He doesn't look threatening or anything, but I'm like, this is odd. Because, I give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, he didn't look disheveled. He didn't look lost. He actually looked confident, like he knew what he was doing. Walks up the driveway and just kind of stands near the back of the car. Doesn't look like threatening or anything. Doesn't look confused. Doesn't look. He might have been on something. Might have been on something. Doesn't look like he is. Like, there was nothing, like, clear that, and he's there for, like, a strange amount of time. Where, like, he didn't just turn around and walk away. I'm looking at him in the mirror, and I kind of open the door a little bit and look kind of back along the back of the driver's side of the car. And I'm like, I don't know if I said, hey, what's up, or can I help you, or because he wasn't talking. And I'm thinking, I'm just talking on the phone with a friend, and I'm just thinking, this guy's gonna ask for the time or ask for a light, or like, who knows why. Like, because we have Uber deliveries and like, Grubhub deliveries and stuff like that coming up our driveway all the time, but they come up the middle towards the door. They don't come up the side of your car, that's like up against a gate. That's like the only thing over on that side is like the door to our backyard. So I'm like, maybe he's coming to use the hose. But he also stopped. And when I addressed him, he didn't talk. And I'm just kind of like, okay, this is odd. So I'm still on the phone with my friend. I shut the door of the car. And I tell my friend, that's weird. He didn't even respond. And I'm just talking to my friend about this guy, like in the driveway. Like, he's still there. So the whole interaction maybe lasted, it's hard to estimate, maybe 1 to 2 minutes tops. But because he was standing there at least a few seconds before I realized he's not talking, so let me ask him what's up. Ask him what's up. He doesn't say anything. I shut the door, and he's still standing there. I don't know what he wants. I don't know why he's there. I don't know if he even knows why he's there. He just walks back down the driveway and goes on about his wherever he was going. He didn't seem to have any tools on him, no bags, no nothing. He was wearing long hair, wearing a white sweater, sorry, a blue sweater with like gray shorts. I don't know what kind of shoes he was wearing. He didn't look disheveled. He wasn't old. He wasn't crippled. He wasn't injured. He didn't seem. He seemed a little. Just the odd part was just because he wasn't speaking. That was the odd part, and that he just kind of made a beeline right to the driveway. And I wonder if it would have been different if he didn't see me there. It wasn't super cold out, so I can't assume that he was just trying to like find a little place to huddle up and get warm. Best case scenario, I think maybe he was just gonna use the hose real quick. He looked like he'd been there before, like the way he just turned up the driveway. He looked like he'd been there before. That's why it was weird to me, because I was like, I'm trying to think like, do I know him? Does he know somebody I know? Like, is he local and just knows I sit outside a lot and just is gonna ask me something specific, but nothing verbal from him. And he didn't confront me. He wasn't threatening me. He wasn't making any kind of threatening gesture. But I don't know if he was trying to make some kind of, I don't know what, I don't know. I just think he was having a weird moment. Maybe he was on something. I don't know. Or maybe he was trying to steal something or rob us. I don't really know. It's not very clear to me. But he seemed like he knew where he was trying to go. That was the part that made it so odd, was like he wasn't looking around. He looked just like any other person who was walking on the sidewalk. But he just came up the driveway. And not the middle of the driveway, the side of the driveway that was like right by the fence. So it's things like that that I'm like, okay, maybe we need more security. Maybe we need cameras. Maybe we need, you know, just logical things. People are getting a little weirder, a little out of hand. Nothing happened, but it's weird because I witnessed it and it was daylight still. It wasn't like it was night where it's like you can't see the person. It was still day and I could see the guy. And, you know, just weird. He didn't look very old. He looked like max, I give him like 35. He seemed kind of in shape. Um, I didn't feel threatened because I was sitting in the car with my keys, so I could have driven off or whatever. I keep a machete in the back of the car if it gets to that point. But I was sitting on my own property, so it's like I don't even know what to say. But weird, 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 weird. Um, so just things like that, weird little community interactions with people, just super strange little stuff like that. Gas stations, ATMs, the weird stuff where the electricity, they turn it off sometimes and they tell us they're gonna do it. It's just a lot of weird little things that are a little bit like, I don't know, like it wasn't always like this. Like I even mentioned with like the amount of sirens that I hear, like I was even questioning once, did they like change the route or something, or build like a new station right near us or something? Because I grew up in this area and I'm almost surprised when I can like record a couple podcast episodes and none of them have sirens in the background, you know. Um, so I don't know. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think? I would say we're probably in the singularity. It would be possible to reverse a little bit, but it would be a challenge. Um, there might be some risk involved. Who knows to what extent, you know, our country could manage it. I mean, I think other places could manage it because they're not so reliant on technology. Or if you didn't live in, like, if you were more sustainable and you weren't like in a major city, you'll probably be better off if you have like a farm, you know, or just land where you have the ability to grow stuff and like get animals and stuff. Um, I mean, it's still not easy because like farming and gardening and all that, homesteading, you still have to rely on like the weather and security, and it would just be such a big change. Um, and how does AI play a role? Like what I was trying to get into talking about was these cars. Electric cars. Like I said, like people like the certain sustainability issue, uh, the advancement with the gasoline and you know gas cars. They do pollute. So I don't think electric and eco-friendly like automobiles and transportation, I don't think they pollute as much, but they do strip resources from certain communities and certain tribes, certain indigenous groups, and it changes their lifestyle. I don't feel like they're getting support. Um, so it comes at a price. It comes at a price that people are being displaced because of technology as well. Um, I do think it's a big deal. It's one of those things that's kind of easy to just put it in the back of the mind and be like, who needs to think about this? Kind of the same thing about the near slave labor of the Chinese who make our stuff, living in these dormitory environments, some places at these factories, and working crazy hours for barely any money and not even really making a livable wage, and almost being like indentured servitude kind of environment, like a I don't want to call it like slave labor because I think they do get paid, but I don't know if it's a livable wage. I don't know what they get paid. It doesn't sound sustainable if you have to live in a dorm just to work. Um, I don't know what part of that society is working there, but they're doing it because of supply and demand. We have the demand, they make the supply. And the people running those companies, whether they're Chinese or whoever they are, they must be profiting off of it. Um, I don't know how good the workers are being treated or paid. I'm gonna guess not good. Um, but yeah, when people are drop shipping and all that, AliExpress, Alibaba, all those companies, they also drop ship. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be a bummer. I'm just saying, like, it's the reality of it. There's still a lot of flaws in the economy. Technological advances aren't always the ultimate sustainable option. They don't help every group of people. They help some groups of people, and other groups suffer. So, I don't know. Ultimately, it could be better. I guess the question is how. I think we need more innovation in those areas, to consider kind of longer term effects and different ethnic and cultural and social groups that are being impacted by things too. I think a lot of time it's easy to think about the environment, but you know, the people get kind of lost in the shuffle of it all. And the people get affected negatively too. There's some um information about 5G. Is it even healthy? All these different radio waves and other kind of wavelengths that were around. Is it healthy for us to be around all that? How does it correlate with sickness, with illness? I mean, these aren't like common topics where you can just get easy answers. Um, and honestly, it's easier just to ignore it. It's easier to ignore it, you know, and just be like, whatever, you know. It's uncomfortable to think about, so I'm gonna just ignore it. But the reason why I'm mentioning it is because things don't stay the same. If you start seeing little signs of things, it can become bigger. You gotta have a game plan, you know, a game plan for everything. AI sounds amazing. How is it gonna affect your job? Is it gonna make it better or worse? It might make it better or worse. It just depends. Maybe you're working for a company and it gets put out of business because of some AI situation, but maybe you can capitalize on it and start your own business because of it. Who knows? It's not all bad. We have to adapt these days. Adapt. Sink or swim, adapt. I don't think the singularity is a futuristic thing. It seems like we're kind of there. It's not completely not irreversible. I don't think most people want to reverse it. You know, I know. I think I don't want to say I know, but I do think that a lot of some some of their anxiety is due to the scrolling, the instant gratification, the dopamine overload. You can get addicted to these devices because of those quick dopamine hits. You know, I mean, TikTok, Instagram, they don't care, about your dopamine. You know, they don't care about that. They're not gonna try to adjust and be like, oh, you can only spend 20 minutes online before it times you out and you gotta wait 4 hours. Like it's not like that. They give you, free power to use things for free. Even if, it's up to us to control ourselves. You know, we have to control our own, you know, content consumption. As I said here, podcasting and people listen to the podcast, we have to control our own consumption of things. I mean, that's how we cope. We learn what's actually going on in the world. We see it, we view it, we observe it, and we make decisions. We plan in advance, not out of like a scared, fearful thing, but we plan, you know? It's just smart to plan. Everybody knows you should have savings. Everybody knows you should have emergency supplies. These aren't like new ideas. I didn't make it up. Everybody would say it's a better idea to have a little backup. It's a better idea to have security for your house, for your car. People's cars are getting broken into left and right over here. You know, other than doing deliveries, I try not to leave stuff in the car because I'm like, if I have a backpack or a gym bag, and even if nothing's really in it, people breaking in don't know that. They assume, oh, look, it's a laptop backpack. There might be something in it. It's like, yeah, it's my rollerblades. Like, you really want them? I already tried to sell them. They're not worth anything. You can have them if you want them. They're uncomfortable. Or if I have my gym bag, like, what do you want? My like sweaty clothes? Like, the gym bag itself, I don't know, is made out of like Korea or China. It's a cheap bag off Amazon. I don't even know the brand. It's not like a Nike or anything. It's some thing. I don't even know. I mean, it functions. I like the pockets and compartments and stuff, and it's nice, but it just serves a purpose. It keeps my stuff organized to and from the gym. There's nothing of value in there. The most valuable thing in there is probably my combination lock that I use at the gym. I have a towel, maybe extra socks, maybe a change of clothes, maybe, it depends. Maybe a couple water bottles. That's like, when it's full, that's probably what's in it. Not a lot. It's not that interesting. um, but yeah, I think it's good to study. Just study. Think, study, plan, and you'll be okay. Learn about AI, learn about the costs, the benefits of it. Kind of think, brainstorm. Because when I see some things, I'm like, okay, I see how that is good, how it could help me, how it could help my projects and things. And then I see, ooh, these other people's jobs might be at risk because of this. Maybe, if they don't adapt. There might always be a method to adapt. But things might not be able to stay comfortably similar to how they are all the time. And we're kind of reaching that point where a lot is changing very fast. Um, but it's not all bad. I just think we have to be willing to prepare, willing to adapt, willing to think on the fly, act on the fly, and have those backups. If you don't have $1,000 emergency fund, as much as people want to say, oh, the Dave Ramsey method, it's outdated, that's too little money. Agreed. $1,000 isn't going to get you that far. But if you don't even have an extra $1,000, I mean, you're better off to have the extra $1,000 than to not have it, right? It's like, even if it's not going to get you that far, why have $0 saved when you can have 1,000? You know, why have, even 3 months, even saving for 3 months? You might not get a job that's going to sustain you in 3 months. If you get laid off now and you do have 3 months put back for everything, food, shelter, transportation, maybe even a little bit of fun. If you're not, you know, realistically having to buckle down hardcore and not have any fun, that is draining on the spirit. It's hard. It makes it even harder than it needs than it makes it hard to cope when something urgent does happen, when you also can't have any fun in the process and have like leisure and relaxation while you're trying to recover and find new work and stuff. So it would be ideal to have more than 3 months, but if you don't even have 3 months, you know, it's these types of things that keep people worried, where it's like all this advancement is too much. It's like you gotta have a backup plan, you gotta have backup funds, even backup methods to accessing your funds. It can't all be electronic. You can't keep it all in your retirement or 401k or whatever. Like, people lost their pensions in the past. People lost their 401ks in the past. It's not the most secure. Now, will it happen again? I don't know. Like, I don't know. But it has happened in the past within my lifetime where people lost that saved money. I don't think I don't think crypto was kind of a thing back in '08. I don't remember. I heard about it maybe a decade ago from a coworker that I was just like, the only thing that really came to my mind was, oh, I didn't know he was into like technological things. I couldn't even understand what he was saying. It was just like, that's the only thing that I thought was like, wow, this sounds really techy and really cool. I'll look into it. But I didn't know he was into like technological, like techy kind of stuff. It sounded really futuristic, and I never heard of anything like it before. I didn't even have anything to compare it to, so I was like, I really didn't know what he was talking about the blockchain and currency, and like, he bought in early. He was the first person I knew who had it, who even was talking about it. I don't even know if there were apps back then. I don't even remember. Like, he was telling me about it, and I asked him a couple times about it over lunch. And one day he told me about crypto, one time he told me about Bitcoin, one time he told me about Ethereum and the blockchain. And I don't remember when I actually started looking into it. But people say it's a good idea to have some of your money stored or invested in crypto. I mean, the stock market crashes, it's not stable either. We've seen a lot of manipulation, even like the memes, how they manipulate in banks and different things manipulate the market. We've seen Elon Musk be able to manipulate the market. Um, Pump and dump schemes and all kind of stuff. Ponzi schemes, all kind of stuff. There's all kind of weird schemes. I'm not saying that invalidates crypto. I'm just saying like the market in general. It's a new addition to the market. I didn't think much of it until I started seeing major corporations like Visa and MasterCard and all these places start having an interest. I'm like, if they have an interest, something's up. Like major big banking and all that, I don't know, they don't fool around. And the SEC's involvement and them trying to like regulate things. I mean, even crypto's changing. You know, I'm not even like up to date. Like I can't follow everything as fast as it's changing. Um, I got a new card. It's a metal. I don't even know how it. What? It's a metal credit building card that you attach to your bank, and as you use, I think you can use the card. You can deposit money from your bank to the card, and it mines crypto. I've had games where you mine crypto, but this is another useful debit card that mines crypto. I'll record more about it when I actually understand and have used it. Um, it's not like it mines like crypto to a point where you're like, oh, it's got so much crypto. Like it's not like that. But it's innovative. Like people are trying to find uses for things, and I don't want to get left behind, but I also don't want to be living in fear and anxiety. And I also don't want this stuff to affect my mental health on the day to day. I need my life to stay balanced so I can stay healthy. And then I also, don't want to go off some deep end. You know, I want a good balance of being able to pull back and keep things a little old school and move forward and jump into innovations. Problem solve, plan, strategize, and be able to sleep at night, sleep on time, sleep early, not let one more video, one more movie, one more thing, affect my sleep. Scrolling to affect my sleep. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I start scrolling and now I'm getting all these dopamine hits and I'm all hyped up, you know. I mean, I've already got insomnia as it is. I don't need help from my cell phone, but it's little things like that that it's like, it's up to me to be careful. I'm the one who has to control what I'm doing. My parents can't do it. My friends can't text to remind me, hey, it's 9:30 p.m. Get off your phone. You don't need to be on your phone. Get off your phone. Um, yeah, interesting times. Um, so all these pockets of areas that I'm talking about, I'm gonna be recording on more. Probably gonna be blogging about them more. I've been neglecting this blog like crazy. I've had a lot to do, a whole lot that I've been working on, and I do want to be creative in those areas. I might be recording one long form piece of content a week or so. I really don't have a schedule yet, but I'm trying to do maybe one a week ish. If I have a topic. If I don't have a topic, I don't want to just ramble. This is more of a freestyle topic because it's something that's of interest to me. As of this weekend, I'm kind of like reflecting on things. It started Thursday, actually. It started last um, Friday. It started last Friday, but I kind of put it down, went back into some old school, like ancient readings and some ancient, writings, like literally ancient from like before the typewriter, even, um, like thousands and thousands of years ago types of writings that I went back into reading, and it kind of got me thinking, about what they were focused on back there and kind of what we're focused on right here. There's a lot of overlap, a whole lot of overlap. Um, and I was kind of comparing and contrasting like differences of like the different ancient worlds. Like, um, say for example, in the movie Gladiator, really long time ago, um, Moses, you know, the ancient like Moabite groups, ancient Ethiopians and Egyptians, like they still had technology and all kinds of like innovations. But what was their day to day like? How do we compare? You know, um, how are they benefiting where we're not benefiting? How are we benefiting where they weren't benefiting? Um, what's the advantages now versus then, or vice versa? Or I guess that's the same thing, huh? The advantages now versus then, like comparing advantages, comparing disadvantages, costs and benefits. I took a step way back in time, in my mind of what I was consuming. I was like, let me consume some of these ancient topics. Take it back to like when people were just talking about, you know, monetary systems and what's it like if you borrow something and you damage it. What's the rule? How do we address this in our society? If somebody injures a slave, how do we like we don't even have slaves in the US anymore, thank God. But if somebody, like what were the rules when people did have slaves in certain, I mean, I guess in some societies there are still slaves, but and I do question if we contribute to like a modern form of slavery with our economic system. I do question that because I do think it exists. I do think there are other forms of slavery that capitalism creates. It is my opinion, maybe a controversial one, but when I see how some people live in China that are making the stuff that I buy over here, it bothers me. I'm bothered by it. You know, I'm bothered by it. They choose those jobs. I don't think they're being like captured and forced to work in the factories. Um, there's some theory that I can't confirm about like are North Koreans being snuck in and forced to perform a lot of labor in countries like China and Russia. I don't know. I mean, that is even worse to think. We saw what happened with the past World Cup, where all these people were hired from all these other countries to work, and the conditions were bad for a lot of them. A lot of them were getting paid. A lot of them had health problems because of it. They weren't living in nice conditions. I would call that some kind of slavery, some kind of manipulation. And it kind of came and went. I don't know if anyone's looking into those stories, but I think about things. I'm like, that's not right. It's not right. It's not good. It's not okay. I don't harp on it all day, but I'm aware. I try to be somewhat aware that, like, okay, not everything has a positive side to it, and what am I willing to just overlook? There's a lot of stuff that I'm like, okay, I maybe won't buy this. I don't buy from these companies, but I don't do that for every company. I don't stop driving my car because I need gas. And I have a problem with how some of the gasoline gets to me. I don't stop buying everything. I don't stop using TikTok. I don't stop using certain things. I don't stop fully, you know. But everyone can make their own decision. You know, everyone can make their own decision. I'm not here to like guilt trip people. I'm just saying this is the kind of stuff that I sit and I think about. Not just the negative stuff, I think about the positive stuff too. You know, how easy it is for healthcare. I have a doctor's appointment. I don't even have to remember it because they're going to remind me more than once. You know, a week before, the day before, the day of. Like, you know, I have a pretty good doctor's office. I had an eye exam the other day. They didn't have to poke something in my eye. They didn't have to puff air in my eye. They've updated some of the things that, you know, made me kind of, it was kind of an aversion toward even like the checkups because I'm like, this sucks. I hate these stupid little things. You know, it's annoying when people puff air in your eye or they're like, open your eye. This thing is going to touch your eyeball and like, but don't blink. And I'm like, dude, it's touching my eye. Like, read the screen while it touches your eye. And I'm like, dude, what is this? Now they can just take pictures. You know, they use these lights and they take pictures. You know, a lot more comfortable. Nothing's touching me. I think the most of what they touched was they had like a little wooden stick thing to kind of pull my eyelid down a little bit or up a little bit when they were like looking with the camera. That's the most they did. And before it used to be like, oh man, like I hate going to the eye doctor. I hate getting eye exams. But now it's like they don't even really touch you at all. So it's better. That kind of stuff is better. To me, I'm like, this is better. I like it more. You know, I get all like flinchy if I think something's gonna happen. You know, I've only got two eyes and I need them both. um, but you know, I think I've talked long enough on this. I kind of wanted to have a more interesting topic, more of a brainstorming topic, and we'll go from here. I don't want to make it too much longer, but I figure a lot of people have a 3 day weekend. You might have more time to listen to this one. Um, all right, guys, with that, thanks for listening.